Security guard Walter Martinez thought he knew every sound in the abandoned textile warehouse until 2:30 in the morning when he heard machines running on the factory floor. The place had been shut down for decades. He grabbed his flashlight and headed downstairs. The sound grew louder with each step. When he pushed open the heavy doors, workers in faded uniforms operated rusted machinery. They moved like shadows, repeating the same motions over and over. "Excuse me," Walter called out. "You can't be here." None of them looked up. He approached a woman at a spinning machine. Her name tag read, Maria, 1987. That's when he remembered the chemical leak. 37 years ago, everyone died. Walter's hands shook as he walked to the time clock. There, punched in from December 15th, 1987, was his own time card. He looked down at his uniform. Faded, old. Walter Martinez had been working the same shift for 37 years, and he never knew he was dead. What if a prison janitor started seeing executed inmates return to their cells every night? Marcus had worked the night shift at Riverside Penitentiary for 3 years when it began. First, he noticed cell block D was never truly empty. Shadows moved behind bars. Footsteps echoed down empty corridors. Then he saw them clearly. Death row prisoners, executed years ago, going through their final day routines over and over. Reading last letters, pacing their cells, waiting for dawn that never came. Only Marcus could see them. His colleagues thought he was losing his mind, but the truth was worse. The prison sat on a temporal anomaly, trapping the consciousness of every executed prisoner in an endless loop. Marcus became obsessed, documenting their stories, trying to help them find peace. He filled notebook after notebook with their final words, until he discovered his own name in the execution records. Marcus had been executed 5 years ago. He was just another ghost, trapped in the same supernatural prison loop. The janitor uniform was his eternal sentence. What if mirrors started showing you aging rapidly while your real body stayed the same? It began on a Tuesday morning when Sarah noticed her reflection looked older. Not a lot, just tired lines around her eyes. By evening, her mirror showed gray hair and deep wrinkles, but her hands were still young and smooth. Within days, people worldwide reported the same thing. Reflections aging decades overnight while bodies remained unchanged. Panic spread fast. People covered every mirror, avoided store windows, anything that could show their reflection. The beauty industry collapsed within weeks. Why buy makeup when you can't look in mirrors? Relationships crumbled as couples couldn't bear seeing each other's aged reflections during intimate moments. Society started breaking down. People became terrified of their own appearance. Then scientists discovered the truth. The aged reflections weren't showing physical aging. They were showing spiritual decay. The more people avoided facing themselves, the more their souls deteriorated. The mirrors were reflecting inner truth, not outer appearance. Running from yourself only made it worse. What if sleep paralysis demons could spread like a virus through eye contact? It started at Riverside College in October. Sarah Chen woke up paralyzed, staring at a dark figure in her dorm room corner. The next morning, her roommate saw the same shadow. Then everyone on their floor. Within days, half the dormitory couldn't sleep. Students were collapsing from exhaustion. The shadows multiplied every time someone made eye contact with a victim. But here's where it got terrifying. The phenomenon spread through video calls, security cameras, even photographs. A single infected live stream reached millions of viewers worldwide. Entire cities stopped sleeping. People couldn't tell what was real anymore. Hospitals overflowed with patients reporting identical hallucinations. Then researchers discovered the horrible truth. The entities weren't hallucinations at all. They were using human consciousness as doorways, crossing from their realm into ours. Each infected person became a permanent bridge. And once enough bridges existed, they wouldn't need us to sleep anymore. They could stay forever. Security guard Xavier Rodriguez thought his final shift would be routine. 2:43 in the morning at Hillcrest Psychiatric Hospital. The building had been abandoned for years, but someone still needed to watch it. During his rounds on the 3rd floor, Xavier found something impossible. Patient rooms that weren't on any blueprint, doors that shouldn't exist. Inside, hospital beds with restraints still attached. As he backed away, he heard footsteps echoing through the halls. Other staff members appeared, wearing uniforms from decades ago. Their eyes were hollow, their skin pale as moonlight. They whispered the same thing over and over. "You can't leave." Xavier ran to the basement security office, desperate to call for help. But sitting at the monitors was his own decomposed body, still in uniform, still watching the screens. He'd been dead for 6 months, trapped in an endless loop. The hospital keeps hiring new guards to replace him, but they all end up the same way, still walking the halls, still doing their rounds, forever. Here are 5 things you didn't know about forensic investigator Frank Chen's impossible case. First, Frank has been processing the exact same murder scene for 15 years without aging a single day. Every morning, he arrives at the crime scene looking exactly as he did in 1998. Second, every piece of evidence he carefully collects during the day mysteriously reappears in its original location by morning. Blood samples, fingerprints, weapon fragments, all back where he first found them. Third, security cameras show Frank working completely alone, but he sees a full team of investigators helping him. The twist? Every team member he sees died in separate incidents years ago. Fourth, the murder victim he's been trying to identify is actually Frank himself, from the future. DNA tests confirm it, but Frank keeps forgetting this discovery each morning. Fifth, the most chilling truth. Frank died on his first day working this case. He's been trapped in an endless evidence loop, forever investigating his own murder. Did you know a 16-year-old kid convinced the world he was a Pan Am pilot for 2 entire years? In the 1960s, airline security was basically non-existent. No background checks, no ID verification. Frank Abagnale studied pilot manuals, memorized aviation terms, and watched how real crews behaved at airports. He created fake credentials and walked straight into cockpits, claiming jump seat privileges. Airlines treated him like royalty, free flights worldwide, luxury hotel stays, even cash advances. His act was so convincing that captains invited him to observe flights from the cockpit. Frank learned every detail of airline operations, exploiting their complete trust-based system. But then came the moment that nearly destroyed everything. Mid-flight, the real pilot suddenly collapsed. The crew turned to Frank to take control. His heart pounded as he faked a sudden illness, claiming he couldn't fly. That terrifying close call changed aviation forever, leading to modern security protocols. FBI agent Carl Hanratty eventually caught him, but not before Frank proved how dangerously easy it was to fool an entire industry. Did you know the biggest art theft in history was solved 33 years later when investigators discovered it was an inside job? On St. Patrick's Day 1990, Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum seemed like any other quiet night, until 2 men dressed as police officers knocked on the door at 1:13 a.m. The night guards let them in without question, thinking they were responding to a disturbance call. Within minutes, the thieves had tied up the guards and begun their work. But here's what made investigators suspicious. They knew exactly what to steal. 13 specific artworks worth over $500 million, ignoring even more valuable pieces nearby. The theft was too precise, too calculated for outsiders. Decades later, FBI agents discovered the security guard had made mysterious phone calls that night. He had also disabled multiple alarm systems just hours before the break-in. The breakthrough came when investigators found he owed massive gambling debts to organized crime. He had been feeding them intelligence for months. Today, the $10 million reward remains unclaimed, but the case is finally moving forward. Did you know a single criminal organization pulled off over 370 heists worth $440 million across 35 countries? They called themselves the Pink Panthers, and they were unlike any thieves the world had ever seen. In 2003, Dubai's Golden Diamond Park became their stage for one of the most brazen robberies in history. 3 men in expensive suits walked calmly into Wafi Mall during peak shopping hours. Within 90 seconds, they smashed display cases with hammers and escaped with $2.5 million in diamonds. Shoppers stood frozen in disbelief as the thieves vanished into the crowd. These weren't ordinary criminals. They were former Yugoslav war veterans using military precision. They studied security footage for months, coordinated escapes across international borders, and swallowed diamonds to avoid detection. Their network of safe houses stretched across Europe like an invisible empire. Then Interpol made a chilling discovery. Fingerprints connected seemingly unrelated heists from Tokyo to London. They were hunting a single, highly organized network. Despite an international manhunt, most members remain free today. Their legacy changed global jewelry security forever. Did you know Nazi Germany nearly destroyed Britain's economy using perfect fake money? In 1942, the SS launched Operation Bernhard inside Sachsenhausen concentration camp. They forced skilled Jewish prisoners to become master counterfeiters at gunpoint. These prisoners created printing plates so flawless that Bank of England experts couldn't tell the difference. The operation produced over £130 million in fake currency, enough to crash Britain's wartime economy. But the prisoners faced an impossible choice: create perfect forgeries to survive, or sabotage and face execution. As the operation escalated, they made a deadly decision. They secretly introduced tiny flaws to slow down production, risking their lives to protect the Allied economy. For months, they walked this razor's edge between survival and resistance. When Allied forces finally raided the facility, they found warehouses packed with perfect counterfeit notes. The prisoners had become unsung heroes, using their skills to fight back from within. Their sacrifice led to the anti-counterfeiting measures we use today. Sometimes the greatest acts of defiance happen in complete silence. Did you know young women once painted watch dials with poison and were told it was perfectly safe? In 1917 Newark, hundreds of girls worked at the Radium Dial Company, painting glow-in-the-dark numbers on watch faces. They were taught to lick their brushes between each stroke to create fine, precise points. The radium paint tasted sweet, so some girls even painted their nails and teeth for fun at parties. Their bosses assured them radium was harmless, even healthy. But within months, something horrifying began happening. Their bones started glowing in the dark through their skin. Their jawbones crumbled like chalk, teeth falling out in chunks. When Grace Fryer tried to sue, the company buried evidence for 5 years while more girls died. The radium had eaten them alive from the inside, their skeletons literally disintegrating. Some died with their faces completely caved in, unable to speak or eat. Their sacrifice wasn't in vain, though. Their deaths forced America to create the first worker safety laws, protecting millions of future workers. Did you know a suburban father killed over 100 people and kept their bodies frozen like meat? Richard Kuklinski lived 2 lives in New Jersey during the 1960s through 80s. By day, he was a loving husband and father of 3. By night, he was the mob's most feared contract killer. They called him the Iceman. He poisoned victims with cyanide, shot them with crossbows, and froze corpses to confuse investigators about time of death. Kuklinski felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse. He took pride in finding creative ways to kill. In his secret torture chamber, he would keep victims alive for days, experimenting with different methods. Police discovered bodies frozen solid, some for years stored like trophies. For over 20 years, nobody suspected the Quiet Family Man was a monster. An undercover FBI operation finally caught him in 1986. On death row, he confessed to everything, describing each murder in chilling detail. The perfect neighbor was actually the perfect killer.